Hello, welcome to Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Yinko Etade. Here's a look at the stories making headlines across the continent. It could be a turning point in the war in Sudan. Celebration in the capital of Al-Jazirah state as the Sudanese army recapture the city from the paramilitary rapid support forces. The race to retrieve hundreds of illegal miners holed up in South Africa's Stilfontein mine begins. Survivors and bodies being brought to the surface. Authorities say at least 100 miners have died. Kizza Besigye, veteran political foe of Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, appears in the courts for the first time today. The 68-year-old accused of treachery, a charge that carries the death penalty. We're going to start the programme with the latest in the war in Sudan. There's been jubilation in the capital of Al-Jazirah state after it was recaptured by the Sudanese army. People in Wad Madani are hailing the seizure as a possible turning point in what has been a devastating war. The conflict has triggered the world's largest humanitarian crisis and forced more than 12 million people out of their homes. France 24's Olivia Bizo has more.
Capture the strategic city of Wad Madani began just a few days ago. And after intense days of fighting, the army recaptured the city on Saturday. Images online show citizens cheering and celebrating as army soldiers entered the city. It's a huge win for them. Now, the city used to be known for being a humanitarian hub. It's where a lot of NGOs operated from at the beginning of the conflict because working from the capital, Khartoum, was just too dangerous. The capital is located about 200 kilometers away from the strategic city. It's also where a lot of Sudanese sought refuge at the beginning of the war. That's all until the RSF took control of the city just over a year ago now. Now, this is a huge blow to the paramilitary rapid support forces, as it's going to cut them from major parts of Sudan. But they still control major parts of Darfur, as well as many parts of the south of the country, whereas the army control a lot of areas in the north, east and many parts of Khartoum. Now, the RSF was supposed to hold a press conference this Monday in Nairobi to address the loss. However, that conference was cancelled at the very last minute. An RSF source told us that this is likely because of American pressure on the Kenyan government after the US accused the RSF of a genocide just last week. Now, the leader of the paramilitary rapid support forces, Hemedti, has admitted defeat, but he said that this is not the end and that he will continue fighting even if it takes decades.
Next, it caps off a standoff that has lasted since November. South African authorities have begun retrieving illegal miners holed up in the Stilfontein mine. The race to bring what could be hundreds to the surface follows a court order. Judges had mandated the rescue operation after letters were brought to the ground level in which trapped miners spoke of how they were dying like flies in unbearable conditions. Authorities say they've already retrieved 100 bodies. Nora Brashtika has the story.
Deploying heavy machinery, South African authorities launched a much-delayed rescue operation at the Stilfontein mine. One by one, several body bags were pulled out of the abandoned shaft. But a local trade union monitoring the rescue said 7 people made it out alive on Monday, all of them in critical condition.
Completely emaciated, completely dehydrated, in a very dire state physically. And it is very clear to us that they would require an urgent medical attention.
A Pretoria High Court last week ordered the rescue of the trapped miners following a months-long standoff with police. The ruling followed claims and videos showing dozens of dead bodies left rotting inside the tunnels, where hundreds of illegal workers are still believed to be holed up. South African authorities began laying siege to the Stilfontein mines in November, preventing food and medicine from being sent down to the miners and arresting those who dared venture outside. The situation sparked an international outcry, with rights groups accusing the South African government of inhumane treatment. The latest court ruling set a 10-day framework to complete rescue operations, But it remains unclear what will happen to the workers, many of whom live in South Africa without proper documentation, once they make it back to the surface.
Activist Maria Sarugi Tahai has accused the Tanzanian government of being behind an attempt to abduct her. Tahai was kidnapped Sunday afternoon by 3 armed men and taken into a black van in Nairobi. She says she was only freed following the rapid intervention of rights groups. Tahai is a well-known Tanzanian journalist and activist whose Change Tanzania organization calls for democratic reform. Take a listen to what she's been saying.
Then I asked them, where are you taking me? So they told me that they are police and they're taking me to the police station. I told them it's not possible you're police because you abducted me. And the guy on the left who was holding the handcuffs got very angry and pulled and said, we didn't abduct you, we didn't abduct you. The first thing I did was to remove all my devices that were logged into Twitter and to some of the platforms. I am sure that the abduction, part of the abduction was to get access to my devices and to get access to the activities that I do online, which include, of course, sometimes doing whistleblowing, but also doing a lot around abductions in Tanzania. My conclusion at the end of the day is that this incident is straightforward an incident that is targeting what I do for Tanzania. And definitely I feel that this could not have been the way it turned out without public pressure. I also want to thank specifically Kenyans. The kind of ownership they had about this, I didn't expect.
Next, we're heading to Mozambique because a new parliament has been sworn in. The start of a new parliamentary term didn't go ahead without some pushback, though, as people across the capital walked off their jobs in protest, many heeding a call to go on strike from the opposition who contest the outcome of October's election, which saw Daniel Chapo take victory. His win triggered months of deadly unrest in Mozambique. Some 300 people are believed to have died at the hands of security forces. Ugandan military prosecutors have accused Kizza Besigye, a veteran political foe of President Yoweri Museveni, of treachery. The charge, which carries the death penalty, is the latest to be added to a list of violations that prosecutors say were committed by the prominent opposition figure. Besigye's highly anticipated trial kicked off today. He's also accused of endangering national security. France 24's Clément Di Roma has more on the trial.
The legal battle has finally resumed for Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye, who has been detained in a military prison in Kampala, the capital, since his capture in Kenya last November. The latest hearings in his trial were quite chaotic, but on Monday the case finally moved forward at a military court in Kampala. Besigye pleaded not guilty to charges of threatening national security, illegal possession of firearms and treason. The defense is demanding that the charges be dropped, arguing that they are invalid because of Besigye's abduction from a neighboring country, Kenya. It was illegal according to his lawyers. Following his arrest 2 months ago, many Ugandan and Kenyan opposition figures, along with international NGOs, called for Besigye's release and an end to abductions and military trials in the region. A week ago, one of his lawyers was arrested and sentenced to 9 months in prison for contempt of court. Besigye's legal team has also filed a complaint for kidnapping against Kampala and Nairobi with the East African Court of Justice.
At least 20 people are believed to have been killed in Nigeria's Zamfara state after it was hit by a military airstrike. The army is believed to have been targeting armed groups in the conflict-battered northwest when the strike mistakenly killed the civilians working there in community security outfits. It's now the third misfire by the military in over a year. We're going to end the programme off the coast of Tunisia, where conservationists have created the first floating turtle hospital. The sanctuary rehabilitates vulnerable loggerhead turtles that were freed after being caught in trawlers and fishing nets. The creator organisation says it hopes to open their doors to tourists to teach them about how to protect the species. Emily Boyle reports.
With one flick of the flipper, Besma the turtle is free once again. It's on this barge that she regained her strength after she got tangled in a fishing net. This tracking device fixed to her shell helps marine biologists track her migratory routes.
We treat the turtles before releasing them back into the sea. We tag them and monitor their behavior. We make sure that the turtles are 100% capable of taking care of themselves in their natural environment.
This hospital barge, which floats off the coast of Tunisia, is the first rehabilitation centre for loggerhead turtles. Its netted underwater enclosures allow the threatened species to receive care in their natural habitat.
The area where we put these sea turtles undergoing rehabilitation is large enough for them to move and feed more comfortably.
Around 10,000 loggerheads are caught by fishing nets in the waters of Tunisia every year. This vulnerable species is struggling to survive as it faces global warming, overfishing and pollution. Conservationists hope to invite tourists onto the barge to raise awareness about loggerhead turtles and their conservation.
Well, that's it from all of us on the Eye on Africa team, but do stay with us here on France 24.